What if a single moment, a mistake on an ordinary street, changed the course of your entire life? What if love found you when you were covered in frosting and fear? It was just another chilly morning in Seattle when Emily Carter found herself rushing across 7th Avenue, one hand holding her phone, the other gripping the handle of her cupcake cart. Her apron was smudged with buttercream, and her voice was soft but urgent. "I promise I'll make it this time, Grandma," she whispered, dodging a cyclist. "Don't rush, sweetheart. Just get here safe," came the gentle voice of Grandma June through the speaker. Emily smiled right before the universe decided to test her balance. The wheel of her cart caught a crack in the pavement. One second she was upright, the next, crash. A metallic clang, a splatter of pink frosting, and her carefully arranged cupcakes were now modern art. On the hood of a midnight black luxury car, her heart sank. Her hands trembled. She could barely breathe. "No! Please no," she whispered, staring at the mess as if denial might undo it. Then the car door opened. Out stepped a man, tall, immaculately dressed in a suit so sharp it could cut glass. His expression unreadable, but not kind. He looked at the frosting, then at her. "You just dented a Ravenheart," Emily blinked. "Technically, it was my cart, and gravity, and a really mean sidewalk." Nathan Blake, the CEO of Blake & Co., the kind of man who made headlines with boardroom takeovers, tilted his head, unimpressed. "Do you even understand what a paint job costs on a car like this?" She nodded weakly. "I do. It's probably worth more than my rent for the year. Maybe we don't focus on that part." He pulled out his phone without a word. "What are you doing?" Emily asked, frosting still dripping from her fingers. "Calling the police," he replied flatly. Without thinking, Emily lunged between him and the phone like a clumsy action hero. "Wait, please. There's another way." Nathan raised an eyebrow. "You've got 5 seconds." Emily's mind scrambled. Her voice, though shaky, found a desperate kind of charm. "I'll pay you back in the best way I know how. With cupcakes and coffee." "Excuse me? I run a dessert cart. Honest to God," one woman said, "my brownies saved her marriage. I'm not saying I'm a miracle worker, but my espresso might be." He blinked slowly. "You're trying to cover luxury car damage. With pastries? They're not just pastries. They're tiny acts of happiness, emotional first aid, and judging by your expression, you might need a dose." Emily offered a nervous smile. Nathan stared at her like she'd lost her mind. But something in his eyes shifted curiosity maybe, or exhaustion. "And if I say no, then you'll be remembered as the billionaire who crushed a baker's dreams and made an old woman cry on her birthday. She just wants tea and cupcakes tonight," he sighed. "Is this emotional manipulation?" "I prefer to call it emotional negotiation," she replied, lifting her frosting-covered pinky like a toast. Silence hung for a beat until he said, "Tomorrow. 7:30 a.m. Blake & Co. headquarters. 1 black coffee, 2 croissants, 1 gluten-free muffin. Delivered. Personally." Emily gasped. "So, that's a yes? It's a deal. But if you're late even a minute, I'm calling the cops." "Deal," she beamed, tearing a piece off a napkin to scribble down the order. "Oh, and do you want your muffin with fruit or regret?" He paused at the car door. "Fruit." As he disappeared into the luxury vehicle, Emily stood in the street, surrounded by broken cupcakes and disbelief. She picked up a half-crushed red velvet, took a bite, and whispered to herself, "Well, Emily Carter, you just traded your dignity for a dented hood and a muffin. Let's hope it's worth it." Emily had always been the kind of person who could walk straight into chaos, and still find a way to laugh through it. But even she didn't expect that her morning would now come with an executive order, 7:30 a.m. sharp, 1 double mocha, 2 croissants, 1 gluten-free muffin, delivered in person, a deal sealed with sarcasm and frosting. Was that a yes? She'd asked. That was a contract, Nathan replied, already scrolling on his phone. And if you're late, the deal's off, and I call the cops. 7:29. Delivery confirmed, she said, scribbling his exact order onto a napkin, still sticky, from yesterday's disaster. Oh, and just to clarify, she added, as he stepped into his sleek black car, would you like your muffin with fruit? Or with existential regret? Fruit, he said without a glance, and shut the door. Emily was left in the street, alone with the splattered remains of her dignity and her cupcakes. She picked up a slightly squashed vanilla one, took a bite, and muttered, "Well done, Emily. You've just traded your pride for a dented hood and a gluten-free muffin." Iconic. The next morning hit her like a missed international flight, except instead of Paris, she was heading toward a skyscraper in downtown Seattle with pastries and a cup of courage. Her alarm rang with the mission. Impossible theme, her younger sister's idea of motivation. 5:42 a.m. And her body agreed that this was a bad life choice. She bolted out of bed and immediately face-planted over the neighbor's cat, Mr. Boots, who had once again crept in through the window. She landed on her shoes and groaned. First gravity? Now Garfield, in disguise, she muttered, rubbing her bruised cheek. Her coffee maker screeched to life like a dying spaceship, and so began Operation Caffeinate the CEO. While kneading croissant dough with fingers still sticky from honey, she whispered like a mantra, double mocha, 2 croissants, muffin, no delays, no tripping, no dying. She wrapped her flower-patterned apron around her waist, loaded everything into her thermal tray, and stepped out with her aging coffee cart, which now squeaked like it needed both oil and therapy. The Blake & Co. building stood in the center of downtown Seattle like a monument to ambition, glass, steel, and more windows than she had Instagram followers. As she approached, even the automatic doors seemed to pause before letting her in, like they were assessing her stained sneakers. The lobby guard had arms like tree trunks and the expression of someone who took protein shakes too seriously. "I'm Nathan Blake's official caffeine provider," she said brightly, "here to prevent workplace violence 1 mocha at a time." He didn't laugh. She was used to that. "ID?" he asked. She held up a napkin. "Got my name on it. Legally binding?" The stare could have turned milk sour. He picked up the phone. "She's here. The cart girl. Yeah, just like you said. Real sitcom stuff." Then he hung up. 32nd floor. "Don't touch anything." "Not even the elevator?" He didn't answer. Inside the lift, Emily felt like Cinderella in a flower apron, riding an iron pumpkin up to the dragon's tower. When the doors opened, the executive floor was all silence and glass and expensive air. She was greeted by a receptionist who looked carved from ice and wore a blazer that could cut tension. "Emily Carter," she announced. "Here with the first installment of my cupcake settlement." Without looking up, the woman motioned toward the CEO's office with her chin. Emily took a deep breath, adjusted her tray, and pushed the door open with her shoulder. Nathan Blake didn't look up. He sat behind a desk that was probably insured separately from the rest of the building. His laptop had more processing power than her entire life. "You're late," he said without blinking. Emily glanced at the clock. 7:31. That still counts as 7:30 in 48 states. He didn't crack a smile. She placed the drinks and pastries down with the dramatic flourish of a Broadway server. 1 hand-ground, double-shot mocha, 2 perfectly flaky croissants, and a gluten-free muffin that cost me a small piece of my soul. Emily placed the tray down, with all the theatrical elegance of a Broadway waitress auditioning for her big break. One handcrafted double mocha brewed from beans I ground with love and caffeine-induced panic. 2 golden croissants that crackle with each bite. And 1 gluten-free muffin, which, for the record, cost me my soul and $16 I don't really have. Nathan picked up the coffee, took a cautious sip, and bit into the croissant like he was evaluating a financial report. "It's edible," he said. Emily gasped. Was that a compliment? He didn't answer. "Do you need medical help? Blink twice if you're in distress." Still nothing. "Same time tomorrow," he said simply, not looking up. "No feedback?" "Yelp review? Haiku?" she offered. "Less talk, more punctuality." She rolled her eyes and turned to leave, only to bump into a massive vase by the door and nearly create an abstract sculpture of hot coffee and flying ceramic. The next day, Emily arrived 2 minutes early. Nathan checked his watch, then looked at her. Still late. She sighed. "You know what you need? A sympathy muffin with 'Leave me alone' written in frosting." And so the rhythm began. Day after day, she arrived with her cart. He barely said a word. She tried a joke. He chewed like a machine. But something subtle and slow began to shift. By Wednesday, Emily handed him his muffin with a tiny note attached. "May contain traces of humor. Please alert us of any allergy." He didn't say anything, but on Thursday, the coffee cup came back with a sticky note. "No side effects. You may proceed." Emily was so thrilled she forgot her tray upstairs. By Friday, life had piled on her from every direction. Her grandmother needed help through the night. Her sister had a meltdown over a fight with her online boyfriend, and the neighbor's cat had thrown up in her oven. She walked into Nathan's office with tired eyes and a lopsided smile. "Here's your survival kit," she said. 1 mocha, 2 croissants, 1 muffin, and a delivery girl in full zombie mode. Nathan frowned. "You look disorganized, and you look like the villain in a courtroom drama. We're a perfect match." He said nothing, just bit into a croissant. Emily's eyes wandered around the office and landed on a framed photo of a little blonde boy holding a dog. "Your son?" "My nephew. Lives with my sister in Seattle." "He's cute," she said. "He looks like the kind of kid who sneaks marshmallows into his cereal when no one's looking." Nathan glanced at the muffin. "You talk too much, and you don't talk enough. But it's okay, I've started counting your words. So far, 57 syllables this week." He didn't smile, but for the first time, his eyes lingered on her just a moment longer. That afternoon, as Emily left the building, she almost collided with a man in a navy suit and an easy grin. "Whoa! Coffee with a jump scare?" He laughed, catching her tray. She chuckled. "You must be one of Blake's people." "Let me guess. Legal or PR?" "Neither. But you must be the walking coffee contract." Her eyes widened. "He talked about me?" The man smirked. He said something like, "She's dramatic, loud, writes muffin notes, but she shows up." He shrugged. "That's basically a love letter in Blake language." Emily blinked, unsure how to respond. "He's not as cold as he looks," the man added. "Just more complicated than a puzzle with no picture on the box." On Saturday, Emily decided to switch things up. She brought a small thermos, decorated with hand-drawn cupcakes, wearing tiny smiles. On the label, she'd written, "Daily dose of human tolerance. Shake well before socializing." Nathan took it, read the message, and raised an eyebrow. "Worried I'll sue you for excessive personality? If you do, please add caramel drizzle. I'd like it to pair well with my criminal record." He took a sip, paused, and said, "It's not as sweet today." She tilted her head. "Reflects your mood, maybe? I was talking about your soul." She grinned. "Well, I can make both sweeter by Monday." She turned to leave, but then he said quietly, almost like an afterthought, Add a cheese roll. Emily froze. Wait, what? Was that a special request? He didn't respond. She walked away, practically floating, heart dancing. That night, curled up on the couch next to her grandmother, she whispered to herself, Emily, I think you just witnessed the evolution of a CEO. And it started with a muffin. That night, curled up beside Grandma June with a warm blanket and a half-drunk cup of tea, Emily let her thoughts slip out loud. Nana? Mr. Blake asked for a cheese roll. That's basically his way of saying good morning. She paused, then added, laughing, if he ever asks for chocolate fudge, I might just marry him. On Monday, she arrived at Blake & Co. Theatre earlier than usual, twice the energy, triple the nerves. In her basket, his usual coffee, croissants, and a warm cheese roll, wrapped with a napkin that read in looping handwriting, because even CEOs deserve a soft start to their week. He ate everything without a word, but as she turned to leave, his voice stopped her. Are you always like this? Annoyingly? Charming? Yes, she replied without hesitation. I meant persistent. She tilted her head, somewhat smiling. When it comes to muffins and grumpy billionaires, absolutely. There was a pause. Then, barely audible, he let out something she hadn't heard from him before, a quiet, muffled laugh. Emily froze, eyes wide. Wait, was that a laugh? Am I hallucinating? He rolled his eyes. Security, we have a situation. Blake might be sick. She grinned. Don't worry. I'll bring tea and cough syrup next time. Get to work, Emily. And for the first time since their strange bargain began, she left his office with a full, genuine smile. The deal was working, but not in the way either of them expected. Maybe this wasn't just about settling a debt. Maybe it was the beginning of something real, built on coffee, sarcasm, cheese rolls, and a quiet kind of curiosity neither could yet name. But life, of course, has a way of keeping people humble. By her third week, Emily had started feeling oddly at home at Blake & Compton. Tower? Even though the place sparkled like it charged rent just to breathe inside. That morning, as she rolled her coffee cart into the lobby, she tripped over the entrance rug. In a cinematic moment of horror, Nathan's freshly brewed cup flew through the air and landed straight on the cream blazer of a man standing nearby. A man who, unfortunately, turned out to be an international investor. Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry. I've got napkins, baking soda. The spirit of a housekeeper, whatever you need, she babbled, scrambling to clean the dark mocha stain. The man scowled. Do you know what this jacket cost? This was organic coffee. You ruined it. It stains. But at least it's premium, she tried. He stormed off. Emily was left in the middle of the marble floor, holding an empty cup and what remained of her dignity. The next day, she tried to take a shortcut through the corridors and ended up in the security wing. She only realized when two very serious guards appeared. Do you have clearance to be here? I have divine clearance. To spread joy and espresso, she said weakly. ID? I have a loyalty card from my coffee shop and 8 stamps. She was escorted back to the front desk under the amused gaze of staff and snickering interns. Of course, word traveled fast. That afternoon, Becky leaned into Nathan's office with a smirk. The coffee lady nearly broke into the IT department today. He didn't look up from his tablet. But the moment she left, he quietly typed on his phone, Becky, find out everything you can about Emily Carter, discreetly. Over the following days, Emily became a familiar and slightly mysterious presence in the building. 3 separate times, people mistook her for a new employee. A nervous intern once approached and asked, Do you know where meeting room 4B is? I barely know where my sanity is, she replied, but I do know where the good croissants are. So, you're from HR? Sort of. I'm from coffee, which is like HR, but for the soul. Meanwhile, from his glass-walled office, Nathan watched her. He didn't understand why this clumsy, vibrant woman kept showing up in his thoughts. She was unpredictable, disruptive, endearing, infuriating, and unforgettable. One evening, Becky returned with a short report. Lives in South Seattle. Takes care of her grandmother and teenage sister. Dropped out of college to support them. Works 2 shifts. No missed rent. No trouble with the law. Nathan didn't speak. She still finds time to bake filled croissants, Becky added. He looked at the screen and softly muttered, almost to himself, she makes it all work, somehow. Pardon? Nothing. Keep working. That Friday night, as dusk settled over the city, the Blake and Cumberland building was mostly dark, except for Nathan's office, where he sat, reviewing quarterly numbers. He stood and stretched, glancing out the window toward the street below. That's when he saw her, Emily. She was standing in front of a high-end restaurant on the corner, her tray of drinks still in hand, her posture small. Across from her stood a woman in a red silk dress, voice raised in cruel disdain. Nathan narrowed his eyes and stepped away from the window. Something was about to happen, and for once, he wasn't going to stay silent. At the corner of Fifth and Pine, Emily stood with her tray balanced in both hands, paper cups steaming softly in the chilly air. Her cheeks burned with embarrassment. Across from her, a woman in a red designer dress was practically shouting. "You really expect me to drink this? This latte?" She spat the word like it was poison. "My dog has better taste than you." Emily kept her eyes low, her voice barely steady. "I'm sorry, ma'am. The order came with caramel drizzle, just as it was written on the ticket I asked for no caramel," the woman snapped. "Are you deaf or just pretending to be stupid?" Emily flinched, her breath caught in her throat. "I can remake it for you." "No charge," she offered gently. The woman scoffed. "Oh, how generous. Do you think I need charity?" She leaned in closer. "Look at you. You don't belong here. People like you should be selling coffee in gas stations. Or maybe out in the suburbs." The words hit, like glass, sharp, cruel, and louder than the busy street around them. But before Emily could respond, another voice rose behind her. Calm, cold, commanding. "Are you sure you want to continue this conversation in public?" The woman turned, startled. Nathan Blake stood there, every inch the polished CEO suit immaculate, expression unreadable. Hands casually in his pockets, but his eyes held steel. "And you are?" the woman asked, her voice suddenly less certain. "The CEO of Blake & Co., he said, "and one of the primary investors in your portfolio, Mrs. Merritt." Her face turned pale. I didn't realize. Well, now you do," Nathan replied. "And just so we're clear, I tend to invest in people who treat others with respect. Public humiliation doesn't exactly look great on a quarterly report." The woman mumbled something under her breath and quickly disappeared through the restaurant doors, her heels clicking like retreat. Emily stood frozen, still holding the tray, still trying to process what just happened. "You were inside?" she asked softly. Nathan gave a small shrug. "I was finishing reports. Saw the scene from the window. Decided it was time to play sidewalk superhero." Emily blinked back tears. "Thank you. I've had people talk to me like that before, but never in front of a crowd. Don't thank me. I hate arrogance, especially when it targets people who don't deserve it." For the first time, Emily looked at him differently, not as the CEO who barked about punctuality, but as a man who had seen her pain and stepped into it. She offered a small smile. "And here I thought your talents were limited to criticizing my muffins. Don't make me regret the rescue," he replied, though the corners of his mouth curved slightly. Emily turned with her tray, But before crossing the street, she looked back. "Hey, Nathan?" He glanced up. "Really, thank you for showing up." He nodded barely, but it was enough. And even as she disappeared into the flow of people, Nathan remained still, watching her, not fully admitting it yet, but feeling the truth anyway. Something inside him had shifted. Maybe, just maybe, life wasn't meant to be lived only behind contracts and glass walls. The days that followed were strange for Emily. Ever since that encounter, she'd walked around carrying the echo of his defense like a soft weight. A mix of confusion, pride, and something she didn't quite have a name for yet. So, when a call came offering a last-minute catering job at a formal event, she said yes without hesitation. She needed the money, the distraction, and maybe, in some stubborn corner of her heart, she wanted to prove to herself that she could hold her ground in a room full of people who lived in another world. A dessert table, the woman on the phone had said, elegant, understated, for a corporate gala. No flashy colors. Trant Events is organizing it. Sponsored by Blake & Cotham. Emily paused. Her heart skipped. Blake & Cope? Boo. No. Couldn't be. Surely not him. Must be another Blake. A cousin, maybe. A cousin. There's always a cousin in these things. But life doesn't usually deal in convenient coincidences. Friday night, Emily arrived at the Atoria Grand, arms full of dessert boxes, her nerves tightly coiled. The venue gleamed like a dream, every surface polished, every chandelier reflecting light like diamonds. Even the floor tiles seemed to glow. She was arranging truffles and macarons with careful precision when the voice rang out through the speakers. "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Please welcome our host tonight, Mr. Nathan Blake." Her hands froze. A spoon clattered to the floor. Her breath caught mid-chest. She turned slowly, just in time to see him walking onto the stage, black suit, confident step, calm smile. And in that moment, all she could think was, of course it's him. A spoon dropped with a clink to the floor, and a waiter nearby raised an eyebrow. Of course. Because the world is small, and irony is a giant, Emily muttered to herself, trying to recover from the shock of seeing Nathan Blake stand center stage. His impeccable suit, the subtle, knowing smile, the kind of elegance she'd only seen in magazines. As the applause echoed around the room, Emily felt like her soul was quietly trying to slip out the nearest exit. Breathe, Emily. You're a professional who's about to smear frosting all over the floor. She forced herself to focus on the candy wrappers in her hands, but her mind kept racing, and then she felt a presence beside her. A woman tall and graceful, her hair pinned up in a way that could challenge gravity itself. She held a champagne glass, her gaze cutting through Emily like a scalpel. "Excuse me," the woman said, her voice smooth but icy. "You're the woman who hit my son's car. And now you bring him coffee every day, don't you?" Emily's heart skipped. She blinked, momentarily lost for words. Yes, it was an accident, and the coffee thing. Well, that was my idea, just a friendly arrangement." The woman gave a half smile. It didn't reach her eyes. "Let me be very clear," she continued, stepping closer, her words sharp. "Don't even think about making a move on him. Don't try to win him over. You're very different from our world." Emily swallowed hard, trying to maintain her composure. "Ma'am, Malene Fisher, mother of the man you're clearly holding out ridiculous hope for." "I'm not." The woman's laugh was humorless. "No need to lie. I've seen this before. Sweet smiles, sad stories, cupcakes and coffee, thinking they can climb social ladders. But you can't." Emily clenched her teeth, feeling the sting. "I'm not trying to climb anything. I'm here to work. Yes, I bring your son coffee with whipped cream, by the way, but that doesn't make me a national threat. Maline's face remained impassive, as if Emily's words didn't even register. This isn't a personal attack, dear. It's just a fact. You don't belong in the same world. For a brief moment, Emily felt the familiar sting of rejection, but she took a deep breath. The world I come from, it's full of people who think they're too important to notice the ones serving them. But I didn't come here to win anyone over. I came to deliver the best pastries in town. If that's offensive to you, maybe you just need a little more sugar in your life. Maline stared at her expression unchanging, before turning with an effortless grace that seemed to leave a cloud of arrogance in the air as she walked away. Emily let out a slow breath. What a night, she whispered to herself. Now all that's missing is the ceiling caving in, or me tripping over a violinist. She stepped behind the scenes, desperately needing some space. The noise of the gala, the clinking glasses, the whispers, they all felt suffocating. Her hands were still shaking. She was staring at the wall, lost in thought, when she heard a familiar voice from behind her. She talked to you, didn't she? Emily turned to see Nathan standing there, his tie loosened, looking more like a man out of place than a CEO. He looked concerned, uncomfortable. My mother has a gift for turning words into sharp knives, he said, a wry smile twisting his lips. It's impressive, if you can survive it. Emily let out a dry laugh. You knew she would find out. I didn't think she'd go after me. Yeah, well, I should have warned you. I tried to keep her out of it, but... He ran a hand through his hair, clearly frustrated. I'm not some charity project, Emily. You don't have to fix anything, Nathan, she said, her voice steady. Just don't pull me into your world. I can't handle these parties with invisible rules. Nathan was silent for a long beat. Then, his voice softened. You don't have to follow invisible rules. Not everyone who looks at you like you walked in through the wrong door is judging you. There was a pause. Emily's arms were crossed tightly, but there was something in Nathan's tone that made her relax, just a fraction. I liked you, she admitted. You stayed quiet. But I like my peace more, and your mom doesn't go well with that. Nathan chuckled, though it was strained. Yeah, she's definitely an acquired taste. They stood there for a moment, neither of them saying anything, just letting the night's tension hang between them. Later, as the event wound down, Emily found herself standing near the kitchen entrance, waiting for the chaos to subside. She couldn't shake the discomfort of that conversation with Maline, but she also couldn't ignore the fact that Nathan had stood up for her. For the first time, she didn't feel invisible in his world. As the last few guests filtered out, Nathan joined her again, this time more casual, as if the weight of the evening had lightened slightly. I'm sorry about my mother, he said, his voice sincere. She's complicated. I can handle complicated, Emily replied, her eyes meeting his. I just don't want to be another piece in your family drama. Nathan nodded. I get it. I didn't ask you to come here, but I'm glad you did. Even with all of this. Even with her. Emily looked at him for a long time, considering his words. Look, I liked you. I've always liked you. But if you're expecting me to fit into your world, I don't know if I can. Nathan smiled. Something almost real, but still guarded, behind it. You don't have to fit into it, Emily. You just have to keep being you. She smiled, the tension slowly lifting. Then let's keep this simple, Nathan. I'm not here for the drama. Just the pastries. And for the first time, it felt like maybe, just maybe, they were finally on the same page. I get it, Emily said softly, almost smiling, but not quite. I'll finish the table and disappear quietly. Don't worry, I won't stain Blake and Koto's reputation with cupcake frosting. Before he could reply, she was already gone back behind the dessert table, focused, face calm but distant. The kind of calm people wear when they're holding themselves together. Nathan just stood there for a moment, hands still in his pockets, watching her. She hadn't apologized. She hadn't shrunk herself. Even after his mother's words, even after the humiliation, she had stayed. Not out of stubbornness, but out of strength. There was something different about her light, more human, more real. 2 days later, Emily was sweeping the sidewalk in front of her tiny coffee stand when the familiar sound of a luxury engine rolled up the street. A black car, a casual presence in jeans and a t-shirt, sunglasses, coffee cup in hand. Nathan Blake. Again. She looked up, unimpressed. Here to scout the competition, she asked. I'm surveying the neighborhood, he said with a shrug, trying to sound businesslike. Ah, market research. Or is this a not-so-subtle excuse to check on the girl you emotionally traumatized at the gala? He gave a slight smile. Maybe both, she crossed her arms. You're a terrible liar. I'm great with contracts, not with pretending I care about real estate. Good to know, she replied. Because here, we only sell coffee, cookies, and uncomfortable truths. He stepped closer, picked up a cookie from the tray. Any discount for remorseful CEOs? Only if they ask nicely. And wear jeans? He laughed. And for a brief second, all the tension that had built between them, between worlds, between pride and apology, melted like sugar at the bottom of a cup. Emily didn't know exactly what Nathan was looking for that morning, but in that moment, standing together on an ordinary sidewalk in an ordinary part of town, they weren't CEO and coffee girl. They were just two people, standing on the same ground. And maybe, for now, that was enough. The next few days, Emily tried to convince herself that meeting Millionaire Blake had just been a nightmare. One of those dreams that leave you sweating and questioning your worth even after you've woken up. But some words echo longer than others. Still, she didn't stop the deliveries. At 8 o'clock sharp each morning, she stood at the front desk of Blake & Co. Cart polished, courage intact, smile defiant. Morning coffee for the prince, she said one day, handing over a cup with whipped cream and extra cinnamon. Just the way royals like it. Becky, the assistant, glanced between Emily and the CEO's closed office door, then leaned closer. He seems different lately. Different how? Emily asked, adjusting the tray. Less grumpy. More thoughtful. Yesterday, he canceled 3 meetings and bought flowers. Emily nearly dropped the tray. Flowers? Becky nodded. Red roses. A dozen. Emily said nothing, just stepped into the elevator, heart thudding against her ribs. When the doors opened, Nathan was already in his office. No suit today, just a dress shirt, sleeves rolled up, glasses perched low on his nose. He looked less like a CEO, more like a man. Human, maybe even a little vulnerable. She set the cup down gently. Your morning fuel. He looked at the drink, then at her. I liked your speech, he said quietly. At the gala, she arched an eyebrow. The one where I defended muffins as a respectable life choice? It was well said. Want me to frame it for your office? Maybe hang it next to your MBA? He laughed. A real one this time. Do you always talk like this? He asked. Like what? Like every sentence is wearing armor. Or hiding a jab. I'm small, she said. I make up for it with sharp words. Nathan smiled. But there was something else in his expression. A hesitation, a flicker. Like he was about to say something, but thought better of it. Emily noticed. What is it? He adjusted his glasses. I need to show you something. I need to show you something, Nathan said, picking up the projector remote. He turned towards the wall, and with a quiet click, the screen lit up behind him. It's part of a new company initiative, a project we've been developing, and well, it has everything to do with you. Emily tilted her head, uncertain. With me? Nathan nodded. After that day, at the restaurant, and the gala, I started seeing things differently. He clicked again. The next slide appeared. The Blake Foundation, empowering independent women entrepreneurs. Emily blinked, eyes wide. It's a support fund, Nathan explained. For self-employed women who are holding their businesses together despite financial strain, we want to offer mentorship, startup capital, community, and real-world tools. He paused, then looked directly at her. And the first name we proposed for the leadership role was yours. She sat back, stunned. You want me to lead this? I want you to shape it, he said, to make it real, with your honesty, your grit, and everything you've learned outside of boardrooms. Emily was quiet for a long moment. This feels like a dream. It's not, he said, his voice low and steady. I've never been more serious. She sat forward, finally finding her words. Nathan, this changes everything. It does, he agreed, which is why I owe you the truth before you decide. Emily's heart stilled. What truth? He hesitated, then walked toward the window, hands in his pockets, voice quieter now. I had you investigated. Silence. What? When you started showing up every day, disrupting my perfectly timed, perfectly quiet routine, I wanted to know who you were. I asked Becky to gather information, and I read it. Everything. Your background, your family, your life. Emily felt the weight of those words hit her chest. Her fingers tightened around the coffee cup on the table. So, the flowers, the project, is this guilt? Or just another rich man's curiosity? Nathan turned to face her. It's admiration, he said. It's respect. Maybe something I still don't have a name for. But it's not guilt. And it's not pity. Emily looked down at the cup in her hands. Suddenly, it felt heavier than it should. I should be furious, she whispered. Are you? She breathed in, steadying herself. I am, but I'm also grateful, not for the report, but for the fact that you actually see me. Nathan took a slow step closer. So, will you consider the project? That depends. On what? On whether I can trust you again, Nathan Blake. He nodded once. No excuses, no defense. One step at a time, then. She stood, lifting the now empty cup. Her eyes didn't meet his, not yet. But just before she left, she paused at the doorway. About the fund, she said softly. It's brilliant. And yes, I want to be part of it. From that moment forward, their connection began to change color. Nathan started showing up at Emily's stand in Queens more often, always with a ridiculous excuse, just doing market research. He'd say, "Oh, right. And that croissant is for data analysis, I suppose?" She'd tease. Emily, too, began visiting Blake & Co., not just with coffee, but with ideas, sketches, notes, daydreams that slowly turned into real blueprints. Their meetings became moments of laughter, and eventually, long, quiet silences, where neither of them said much, yet everything was understood. One afternoon, Emily was helping Grandma Marlene water the flower pots in front of their apartment building. The sun was gentle. The breeze carried the scent of home. That's when a black car pulled up. Nathan stepped out, dressed in dark jeans and a leather jacket, holding a box in both hands. I brought something, he said. Emily raised an eyebrow. This isn't another contract, is it? He grinned. Pancakes. I made them. Found a recipe online. You cooked? She asked, almost suspicious. What kind of CEO do you think I am? The kind who probably thinks frying pans are decorative. He chuckled, then turned toward the older woman sitting in the wheelchair nearby. You must be the legendary Mrs. Marlene. That depends, she replied with a playful glint. Famous for what? For raising a granddaughter who can completely unravel a millionaire with nothing but coffee and honesty. She laughed. And just like that, Nathan earned a point. Emily invited him upstairs. For the first time, he stepped into the home she'd spoken of, the one she protected with fierce pride. It was small, but it breathed life. Photos on the walls, notes scribbled on the fridge, the scent of something real cooking in the air. Nathan stood there for a while, quietly taking it in. It didn't have marble floors or city views, but it had warmth, And for the first time, it felt more like home than any penthouse he'd ever stayed in. "You're awfully quiet," Emily said, watching him as he slowly looked around the apartment. "I'm impressed," Nathan admitted, "with the chaos, the warmth, the way everything here feels real." Just then, a girl peeked around the hallway corner, wearing a vintage band tee and an expression of pure suspicion. "Is that the coffee guy?" Emily smiled. "This is Thomas. The Thomas? As in the guy with the wrecked Jaguar?" Nathan coughed, clearly caught off guard. "So it's an urban legend now?" he said. Emily grinned. "There's even a meme," he groaned. "Great. Exactly what my reputation needed." They all laughed, Emily, her sister Camilla, and even Nathan. And for the first time, Nathan realized this laughter, this ordinary, messy, sincere joy, it was better than any round of applause he'd ever received in a boardroom. Later that evening, as Emily walked him to the door, they stood in the hallway, the light behind her casting a soft shadow across her face. "Thanks for letting me in," he said. "It wasn't a favor," she replied. "It was inevitable." Silence wrapped around them gently. Then Nathan spoke. "Quieter now. What if I want more than meetings and project proposals?" Emily looked at him, 100 thoughts rushing through her mind. "You do?" He nodded. She breathed in and gave him the smallest of smiles. "Then you'll have to deal with your mother, your reputation, and my pride. I've always been good with challenges," he said. Emily stepped back, her hand on the door. "We'll see," she whispered, and with that, she gently closed the door. Later, sitting alone in her living room, Emily stared at a coffee cup on the table, the same kind of cup that, once upon a time, had started all of this. She remembered the day it happened, the crash, the panic, the strange deal to avoid a lawsuit, how absurd it had all felt. And yet now, that absurd moment had quietly grown into something that mattered. He was a part of her life, she, his, but she knew, no matter what came next, she wouldn't let anyone, not his world, not his mother, not the weight of expectations, erase the woman she had fought to become. What began as an accident now felt like a choice. And if she were to choose again, she would always choose the path that kept her whole, even if it meant loving someone gently, carefully. On Monday morning, long before the city fully woke, Emily sat outside her cafe on a quiet bench. Her yellow notebook rested on her knees, the pages filled with crooked sketches and half-written ideas. She still wore her flour-dusted apron, but her mind wasn't on muffins. Nathan had said he wanted more. Not just the meetings, not just the projects. More of her. And strangely, it didn't feel impossible anymore. But Emily knew that feelings demanded more courage than any meeting in a glass office. And she still wasn't sure if she was brave enough for that. "Are you sketching pastries or plotting global domination?" Camilla asked, plopping down beside her with a juice bottle. "Trying to do both," Emily replied. "It's a new kind of strategy." Camilla stretched her legs. "So, Mr. Tall Darkened Coffee showed up again? He has a name." "Oh, sorry. Thomas, then." Emily didn't respond. She just smiled softly, which was answer enough. "If you fall for him," Camilla sighed, "this is going to turn into a soap opera, with a Wall Street subplot. If I fall for him, it'll be my problem. And probably my nervous system's too." Camilla burst out laughing. "Just remember, handsome millionaires can cause more headaches than unpaid bills. Don't worry, I've had experience with both." A few hours later, Emily stood once again inside the tall, gleaming walls of Blake & Co. Her coffee cart rolled beside her like a trusted friend, packed not just with caffeine and pastries, but with something new, a manila envelope containing 3 handwritten pages. Inside, notes, outlines, and dreams for the foundation Nathan had asked her to lead. mentorship plans, workshop ideas, partnership proposals with local suppliers. She was ready. Almost. Before she could knock on Nathan's office door, Becky stepped out. "He's in a board meeting," she said, "but he asked me to give you this." Becky handed her a small gray package. Inside, Emily found a silver keychain. Simple, sleek, engraved with the letter A, and attached, a handwritten note in Nathan's unmistakably neat handwriting. Just a reminder, you already have the key to unlock big things. Emily stared at it, warmth rising in her chest, her cheeks, her fingertips. And for the first time that morning, she allowed herself to hope. Emily slipped the silver keychain into the pocket of her apron as if it were something fragile, something precious, like a secret she wasn't quite ready to speak aloud. 2 hours later, the door to Nathan's office opened. No tie, sleeves rolled, tired eyes, but alive with purpose. "Come in," he said. Emily followed him, her hands holding the envelope carefully, as if it, too, carried a part of her heart. He opened it slowly, leafing through the pages with quiet concentration. "This is more than I expected." "It's not everything," she replied. "Just enough to show I mean it. That I'm serious about this." Nathan looked up, meeting her eyes. "And so am I." They sat side by side, not across from each other, this time shoulders almost touching, as sketches and plans began to cover the table. Ideas turned into questions, questions into decisions, dreams into roadmaps. "What if we host workshops in underserved neighborhoods?" Emily said. "With real tools, real mentors, and an online platform," Nathan added. "Easy signups, plus employee volunteers. You think we can get grocery chains on board?" "If you lead this," he said, "I'll get the contacts." They got lost in it, in the building of something neither of them had planned for. Becky eventually peeked in. "Sorry to interrupt, but it's 6. Nathan blinked. "Already? You have dinner with the investors at 7. He paused. "Cancel it. It's important. Then postpone it," he said, eyes never leaving Emily. "I have another commitment tonight." Becky arched a brow, but said nothing as she left. When the room was quiet again, Nathan turned toward her. "Would you have dinner with me?" Emily tilted her head, amused. "Like, dinner? With food? And maybe napkins, possibly dessert?" She hesitated, but his eyes, full of quiet invitation, erased every no trying to form. "Fine, but only if dessert is cheesecake." They went to a small bistro tucked away in a sleepy Brooklyn corner. No suits, no flashes, no curated image. Just wood tables, low lights, and the scent of basil and baked bread. Emily glanced around. "Why this place?" "Because no one here knows me," he said. "And for once, I just want to be..." "Nathan, you realize that's both deeply romantic and wildly dramatic? I'm trying a new style." He grinned. Sensitive CEO with a touch of lemon pie. She laughed, and in that moment, it didn't feel strange to be there with him. It felt right. Over dinner, they talked like old friends who'd been waiting too long to start. Childhood messes, favorite bands, deep fears they'd never said out loud. Nathan opened up about the weight of his name, the father who vanished too early, and the mother who tried to control what was left. Emily shared pieces of her world, the mother she barely remembered, the grandmother who raised her with fire and grace, and the little sister who saw everything and said more than she should. At one point, Nathan reached across the table and gently took her hand. "You throw me off balance," he said quietly. She smiled, eyes soft. "Is that a good thing? I don't know yet, but it's real." Then his phone rang. He glanced at the screen. The light in his eyes dimmed slightly. "It's my mother. Are you going to answer? I should not. Just 2 minutes." He stepped outside. Emily watched through the window. His expression changed as the call dragged on sharp lines, replacing the softness, frustration simmering just under his skin. He ran a hand through his hair at one point, clearly agitated. When he returned, something in him had shifted. "Everything okay?" she asked. "She wants me at a meeting with Chinese investors tomorrow, and she wants me to bring someone." "Someone?" "The perfect match," he said flatly. "Someone she can present as my future fiancé." Emily's stomach tightened, but she kept her face still. "And are you going?" "No," he said firmly. "I told her no. For the first time in a long time, I said no." Wow, yeah. It felt terrifying and kind of freeing. Emily didn't reply. She just took the last bite of cheesecake. Later, he drove her home. When they pulled up in front of her building, the car grew quiet. Nathan turned off the engine. "Emily," he said, voice low, "I don't know what this is turning into, but I know I don't want it to end." She looked down, then met his eyes. "You're not used to hearing no, are you?" "Not really." "Then maybe it's time you learned," she paused. "Because as much as I like this, I still don't know if I'm ready." Nathan nodded slowly, without pressure or protest. "One step at a time, then." Emily smiled gently, fingers on the door handle. And that night, as she slipped inside, she carried with her a heart both hesitant and hopeful. Because love, when it's real, doesn't always begin with a yes. Sometimes it begins with "we'll see." "One step at a time," she had said. And just before stepping out of the car, Emily leaned in and kissed his cheek just lightly, like a quiet promise whispered into the night. "Good night, sensitive CEO." Nathan smiled. "Good night, Miss I secretly restructure my life." Emily walked into her building, heart lighter, steps gentler, as if the ground itself had softened. Outside, Nathan stayed in the car for a few more minutes, just watching, because deep down, he knew this was the point of no return. The next morning, Emily woke up to a soft chime on her phone. A message. "Nathan Blake. Our project got the green light. Congrats, director." She stared at the text, then read it again and again. And only then did she realize she was grinning like a complete fool. On the couch nearby, Grandma Marlene raised an eyebrow. "Let me guess. Dreamed about cake again?" Emily laughed. "Something like that, Grandma. Something sweet." For the first time in a very long time, her heart didn't feel at war with her dreams. They were finally walking in the same direction. It was a bright, open-skied Friday when Emily stepped through the doors of Blake & Co. headquarters, no longer with her apron or rolling cart, but with something else entirely purpose. Her dark blue dress was modest but elegant, her hair pinned back with quiet confidence. And in her heart, a question she never imagined she'd answer with a yes. "Do I belong here?" Today, she did. At the front desk, Becky greeted her with a smile that felt genuine. "Director Carter. Mr. Blake said to send you straight up." Emily adjusted the strap on her purse. "It still feels strange to hear that." "You'll get used to it," Becky said. "Or maybe you won't. But you'll be brilliant either way." Emily smiled, grateful for the kindness. In the elevator, her nerves caught up with her. Not about the project, but about everything else, because somewhere, between boardrooms and street corners, Nathan had stepped into her life in ways neither of them had planned. And no matter how tender he was, how gentle with her boundaries, Emily's heart still moved cautiously. When the elevator doors opened, Nathan was already waiting. No suit, just dark jeans and a soft gray shirt, sleeves rolled up like he wanted to look accidentally charming, except, of course, It was entirely intentional. "You're right on time," he said, stepping aside. "I'm addicted to clocks," she replied, "and to not getting fired before I've even started." He laughed and pointed to the table where 2 coffees and a folder with the words "New Beginnings" waited for her. "I like the name," she said. "It was your idea. I found it at the bottom of one of your drafts." She opened the folder, skimming the pages. He watched her, not the papers. "You seem different today," she murmured, still reading. "Different how?" "Less CEO. More human." "That's your fault," he said. "I've been spending more time in the real world." "Does that include not analyzing croissants, like they're part of your investment portfolio?" "No promises." She laughed. And just like that, the room brightened. The meeting was alive with momentum. Nathan presented the approved budget, early partnerships, and a proposed launch timeline. Emily suggested they begin with a community event in Queens. Something close to home, accessible, real. By the end of the hour, they weren't just co-leading a project. They were building something with heart. When the last page was closed, Nathan leaned back in his chair. "So now that we've been responsible adults for a full hour, can I take you to lunch? Is that a genuine question? Or some corporate manipulation in disguise? Real question. No contracts, no spreadsheets, just us." Emily paused, then gave him a small nod. "All right, but I picked the place." She took him to a hidden food truck tucked between 2 noisy Brooklyn avenues. It sold spicy tacos and fresh juice. The line was long, the napkins were scarce, and the customers were a mix of taxi drivers, street performers, and late art students. Nathan looked around, raising an eyebrow. "This place? Trust me," she said. And he did, more than she knew. "These tacos," Nathan said, taking another bite, "could probably cure a broken heart." Then he coughed, caught off guard by the heat. Emily grinned. "They should come with a warning." "That's life," she added. "Spicy, unpredictable, and sometimes it makes you cry in traffic." They both laughed, and Nathan reached for a napkin, still wiping tears from the corner of his eyes. "Can I ask you something?" "You can try. Do you ever imagine living somewhere else?" he asked. Emily paused. "Like outside of Queens? Outside New York? Maybe even outside the country?" She leaned back, thoughtful. "I used to dream about it. But I've learned something over the years. Home isn't a zip code. It's the one place where you don't have to apologize for being yourself." Nathan nodded slowly, letting that truth settle. "And you?" she asked. "I've lived in 6 cities, 3 countries. None of them compared to the first time I walked into your kitchen and saw that pot of brigadeiro on the stove." Emily blushed, laughing softly. "You're really getting good at saying the perfect thing at the perfect time." "I'm just being honest." They finished lunch with more juice and fewer walls. When it was time to head back, Nathan offered to drive her, but she shook her head. "Today, I want to take the subway, be alone with my thoughts and my heart." He understood. "See you tomorrow?" "Tomorrow's Saturday," she replied. "I know." Emily didn't say anything more, just raised an eyebrow and descended into the subway station, her smile lingering even after she disappeared from view. That night, Emily curled up on the couch with Grandma Marlene and Camilla, watching an old black and white film, all 3 of them tucked beneath one blanket. They debated, half serious, half silly, about love. "Love," Grandma said, "is knowing someone's flaws and staying anyway." "Love," Camilla added, "is giving up the last slice of pizza." Emily laughed. "Love is being your weirdest self, and knowing they won't run away." They looked at one another, then burst into laughter. For once, everything felt exactly how it should. The next morning, Nathan showed up unannounced, paper bag in hand, nervous energy in his eyes. "I brought muffins," he said. "Is this an apology or a strategic attempt at poisoning? Depends on how forgiving your taste buds are." They went upstairs. This time, Grandma was present and curious. "So, Mr. CEO, what is it that you do for a living?" Nathan smiled politely. "Business, lots of paperwork, very little excitement. But lately with Emily, it feels different." Grandma nodded, clearly approving. Later, when they were alone on the porch, Nathan stood beside Emily, hands lightly resting on the railing. "Can I ask you something? Something serious?" "That's a good start," she teased. "You even use the word serious." "I like you," he said. "Not vaguely, not carelessly. I really truly like you, and I want to try this. If you do too." Emily took a long breath, her eyes scanning his face not for perfection, but for sincerity. "You know my world's not like yours." "And mine," he said. "I'm tired of it. It's not easy, not light. But this? It could be real." She looked at him, weighing not his words but his heart. "Okay," she whispered. "Let's give it a try. But one condition. Anything. No flowers every week. If you really want to impress me, bring cheese bread." He laughed, and then the kiss happened. Not planned. Not dramatic, just real. Soft. Honest. A kiss that said, "We're not perfect, but we're willing." The following Monday, the New Beginnings Foundation officially launched. The event took place in a converted warehouse in Queens, simple lights strung above, soft music in the background, and story panels along the walls, sharing the journeys of brave women entrepreneurs. There was a long table of pastries handmade by Emily. Nathan opened the event with a thoughtful speech. But it was Emily who won the room. She stepped up to the microphone, voice steady, eyes bright. "I started selling coffee because I was scared. Scared I wouldn't make rent. Scared I wouldn't make it." She looked at the audience, then at Nathan. "But now, I'm here, helping women who've felt the same fears. And that was only possible because someone I once thought was just a grumpy CEO believed in me before I believed in myself." The audience rose to their feet. Applause thundered through the renovated warehouse, echoing against the string lights and the soft scent of sugar and espresso still lingering in the air. In the very back of the room, Malene Blake stood watching, her expression hard to read, lips neutral, hands still, eyes unreadable. Hours passed, guests came and went. Then, just as Emily was gathering papers and empty platters, she felt a presence beside her, a glass of white wine, a silk scarf, a sharp, composed voice. "So, it's you again," Malene said. Emily turned, already bracing for another cold remark. "The woman who dented my son's car. And apparently his heart as well." Emily held her breath. "Yes, ma'am," Malene exhaled. "I still find all of this highly improbable, I'll admit. But—" He's smiling again, and I haven't seen that in years. Emily didn't know what to say. "Just take care of him," Malene added softly. "He's more fragile than he looks." Emily met her gaze. "And I'm stronger than I seem." Malene paused, then gave a small nod, and for the first time, she walked away without a single trace of bitterness. That night, after the last light was unplugged and the last folding chair stacked, Emily and Nathan stood in the quiet center of the warehouse. Only the shadows and the soft hum of memory remained. He pulled her close, gently. "You've changed my life," he whispered. "And you reminded me," she replied, "that some risks are worth taking." They kissed again, not because of some obligation or moment, but because they wanted to. And this time, it had nothing to do with contracts, cupcakes, or collisions. It was love, chosen, not stumbled into. In the week that followed, life picked up pace. The New Beginnings Foundation was fully underway. But what kept Emily up at night wasn't the meetings or deadlines. It was something quieter, the way Nathan looked at her now with a kind of warmth that had nothing to do with projects, and the way her heart beat just a little faster, not out of fear, but out of the weight of unspoken feelings. So when he invited her To join a weekend retreat with investors. She hesitated. It's just a small networking trip, he said. Casual. Dinner, a few meetings. I thought maybe you'd come with me, Thomas. I don't have clothes for that sort of thing. He smiled gently. That's easy. We can fix that with a company card. Or just wear that dark blue dress I love. You already belong there. It's not about clothes, she said, voice soft. He understood right away. You're afraid of being judged again. She nodded slowly. I survived your mother, but I still remember how she looked at me, like I was a mistake, a story that didn't belong in her script. Nathan stepped closer. You're not a mistake, Emily. Not in my life, and not in this work we're building together. She looked down. Then, after a few seconds, all right, I'll go. But one condition. He smiled. Another one, if I trip and spill red wine on someone, you have to pretend it's performance art. Deal. That Saturday, Emily left handwritten notes for her grandmother and Camilla. Frozen meals, labeled in bright pink. Extra tea bags in the cabinet. At exactly 9 a.m., a black car pulled up outside her building. Nathan stepped out in a light blazer, sunglasses, and that kind of effortless presence that made him look like he belonged in a cologne ad. Emily, on the other hand, wore dark jeans and a cream blouse she kept tugging at every 3 minutes. Does this look okay? She asked as he opened the door. He looked at her, truly looked. It looks better than okay. It looks like you, and that's what matters. The drive was filled with gentle laughter, stories about cafe regulars, delivery disasters, and Nathan's reluctant confessions, my worst nightmare, he said. Being stuck at dinner with someone who talks about profit margins. Like their poetry. Emily laughed. I don't think you were born to be a CEO. I think I became one. To hide. From everything else. From what? He glanced out the window. From my own mess. They arrived around noon. The retreat was held at a quiet resort, tucked between whispering trees and a lake that shimmered like glass. There was a golf course, a spa, and of course a sprawling glass hall where the dinner would take place. But in that moment, all Emily could think was, I'm here, and I chose to be. The moment Emily stepped into the resort's main lobby, she knew she didn't belong. Everything was too white, too quiet, too perfectly perfumed. She leaned slightly toward Nathan and whispered, This place makes me feel like if I sneeze, someone will find me. He grinned. Relax. Most of the people here only look intimidating. They're just afraid someone might realize they're bluffing. In the room reserved for her, a dress hung from a velvet hanger in the closet, a deep burgundy gown, simple but graceful. Emily stared. Did you do this? No, Nathan said. Becky did. But I gave the final nod. Let me guess she wanted more sparkle. He smiled. She said, You don't need to compete with anyone. You just need to shine. Emily turned away, trying to hide her smile. I'll pretend that didn't move me. Later that night, as she walked into the grand hall with Nathan at her side, Emily felt every pair of eyes shift toward them. Some were merely curious. Others carried the kind of polite judgment she knew all too well. She clutched Nathan's arm, leaned in, and whispered, What if I trip and fall? Then I'll fall too, he whispered back. CEO and guest, faint together 'cause love and red wine. Headlines would love it. She laughed quietly but freely, and suddenly, breathing became easier. During dinner, Nathan introduced her to everyone with grace and ease. There were no awkward speeches, no forced smiles. He spoke about the foundation and never once took credit. Instead, he said, The idea was Emily's. I only did the obvious thing. Believe in it. It was subtle, but powerful. Later, a man with graying hair and a lopsided smile approached. So you're the famous Emily, he said. The girl who turned a fender bender into a director's title. Emily smiled, calm and unshaken. Imagine what I could do if I crashed into a helicopter. Nathan nearly choked on his wine. The man forced a chuckle, nodded, and moved along. Nathan leaned in. You're amazing. You mean reckless. I mean real. And clearly unbothered by reputation. I care more about the truth, she said, lifting her glass carefully with her left hand. He raised an eyebrow. So, you don't smudge your bracelet? Technical details, she smirked. The rest of the evening unfolded with surprising lightness. They danced once. Clumsily, Nathan missed every beat. Emily laughed so hard she nearly lost a heel, and neither of them cared. Or if the others did, they hid it well. Back in her room, cheeks still warm from the night, Emily turned to him at the door. That was more fun than I expected. I promised it would be easy, he said, and you're keeping your promises. That's dangerous. He met her gaze. Want to know what's more dangerous? What? I'm all in. For you. A little more every day. Emily looked down, bit the corner of her lip. Then she whispered, Then I guess we're even. They didn't spend the night in the same room, but somehow their hearts had never felt closer. Yes, there was desire, but more than that, there was care, respect, the rare kind of patience that says, we move at your pace, Babas, not the world's. The next morning, just after sunrise, they walked together toward the lake. The mist clung low. The air smelled of leaves and morning earth. Out of nowhere, Emily asked, Have you ever thought about marriage? Nathan looked over, caught off guard. I've thought about it, he said, but it always felt like contracts and obligations. And now? He glanced at her. Now it feels simpler, like signing a blank page and trusting it'll be filled with the right story. Emily laughed. You really can't turn off the CEO metaphors, can you? Corporate trauma, he said, but I'm in recovery. They stood there quietly for a while, watching the light ripple across the lake. Then Emily whispered, I'm afraid. Of what? Of becoming just another story. The kind that starts differently, but ends exactly like the rest. Nathan took her hand. Then let's write our own, he said. All the way through, page by page. No rush. But no running either. Emily nodded, still unsure of where this would lead. But for the first time, she wasn't scared of the answer. For the first time in years, Emily felt something wild, unfamiliar, yet deeply comforting. She was allowed to try, to risk, to love. Let's take a moment to play a game. If you've made it this far, drop coffee in the comments. Only the real ones will know what it means. Now let's keep going. On the drive back to New York, the car was quiet. But it wasn't an uncomfortable kind of silence. It was understanding, warm, like two hearts resting side by side. Next week is round 2 with the women entrepreneurs, Nathan said as the skyline appeared in the distance. I know, Emily smiled. Already reviewed the questions 3 times. You're amazing. You know that? No, she said softly, but thank you for reminding me. By the time they reached her block, the sun was dipping low, casting gold across the buildings. Emily opened the car door, then paused. She turned back. Nathan? Yes? You don't have to convince me of anything, he frowned slightly, confused. You don't need to prove you love me, she continued. I already know. He didn't respond with words. He just looked at her, the kind of look that wrapped around you like a coat in winter, that said everything and more. Emily stepped inside, and Nathan remained outside, staring at the doorway for a long moment. Like it wasn't just a door, like it was the beginning of something. Inside, Emily leaned against the wall of the hallway, smiling to herself. Yes, she was scared, but for the first time, she was also in love fully, openly, and ready to live it. No hesitation, no retreat. The weekend had been beautiful, but Emily knew what real life was. It didn't give discounts for love stories, and it certainly didn't pause for romance. Monday came. When she entered the headquarters of the New Beginnings Foundation, the atmosphere had shifted, busier, louder, and the stairs, different. Whispers followed her down the hallway. Looks like Director Emily came back from the weekend. With the CEO. The tone wasn't cruel, but it wasn't innocent either. Emily kept her head up, but inside, something tightened. She stepped into the elevator and ran straight into Becky, who gave her a hug without hesitation. "Don't worry," Becky whispered. "Today it's gossip. Tomorrow it's someone else's turn." "I didn't even say anything," Emily replied. "They have eyes. And social media. You were tagged in 3 photos from the gala. Smiling, standing next to Thomas, wearing a dress worth more than my rent. It was borrowed. And that pose? I tripped and fell into his arm." Becky laughed. "I bet he didn't mind one bit." In the office, Nathan was already reviewing reports. When he looked up and saw her, he smiled that small, private smile that always made her chest tighten. "Good morning." "Morning, charming CEO," she said. "Ready to face the gossip mill?" "Always," he said. "My secret? Ignore it with style." The classic no comment approach. "Exactly," she smiled. But as she took her seat at the meeting table, something in the air felt heavier. And then it came. Nathan closed his laptop, crossed his arms, his tone changed. "We need to talk." 3 words that have the power to freeze even the softest hearts. Emily leaned forward, instantly alert. "About what?" "The board," he said quietly. "They found out about the trip. And they're not pleased." Her stomach sank. "Why?" "They think I'm blurring personal and professional lines. That the foundation was approved out of emotion, not data." Her voice sharpened. "The same foundation they already signed off on?" He nodded. "And now, they want to re-review it, from the ground up." Emily stood up, her chair scraping slightly. "That's absurd." "I agree," Nathan said. "But you know how the corporate world works. If they don't have a scandal, they'll create one. So what now?" "I'm going to fight it," he said firmly. "I'll defend every proposal, every number, every step we've taken. But Alice?" He paused. There was weight in his voice now. "They may try to remove you from the position." Emily sat down again. Slower this time. She didn't speak. Just processed. This wasn't about capability or performance. It was about perception and the unwritten rules of a world that still didn't quite believe someone like her belonged in the spotlight, especially not when she was also in love. "I won't back down," Emily said, her voice firm but calm. "If they want professionalism, they'll get it. And if they want a fight, I'll bring coffee and courage." Nathan gave a soft smile. Proud, but there was something else behind his eyes, a quiet worry, because sometimes watching someone you love stand tall also means letting them walk into fire. That week, the meetings grew more intense. Emily stayed late at the office, reworking spreadsheets, defending numbers, and backing up the foundation's impact with data. But the truth? She was fighting with more than documents. She was fighting for dignity, for women like her, for her own right to belong. "At home," Camilla noticed, "you seem different," she said one night, "more serious, more tired." "Growing up is hard work," Emily replied. "So is loving someone." "Right." Camilla set down her phone. "I think you and Nathan have something real, but it's like you're afraid to actually feel happy." Emily stopped mid-chop, a carrot half sliced in her hand. "I don't want to depend on love to feel whole." "But you already are whole," Camilla said. "Maybe that's exactly why he fell for you." On Thursday afternoon, as Emily reviewed reports, an anonymous email arrived. Subject line, "Do you really know who Nathan Blake is?" She opened it. Her heart sank. There were old documents, messages, and articles, traces of Nathan's past business moves. Companies shut down. Small shops bankrupted by ruthless strategies. Mass layoffs. Cold efficiency. Nothing illegal, but everything cold, corporate, calculating. Not the Nathan she knew, but still part of his truth. That evening, she walked into his office without knocking. "We need to talk." Nathan looked up, closed his laptop slowly. About? About the companies you closed. The people who lost everything. "Why didn't you tell me?" He was quiet for a moment, then said softly, "I thought you already knew. My past isn't pretty. I was trained to follow numbers, to cut where it hurt as long as it didn't bleed on paper. And now I'm trying to fix it. With you. With this foundation. With every woman who finally gets a chance not to depend on anyone." Emily stood still, processing. "You want to know if I've changed," he added. She nodded. "I'm trying," he said. "And maybe a big part of that change is you." She finally sat down across from him, still uneasy, but listening. "I don't need a perfect man," she said. "I need someone brave enough to be real." He met her gaze. "Then I'm your guy, full of past mistakes, but no interest in repeating them." That night, Emily lay on the couch, TV humming softly in the background. Her thoughts were a storm. This was her moment. To choose love, not perfect, but willing. Or to walk away and stay safe, but alone. On Friday morning, the board meeting began. Before it, Emily assembled her own presentation photos, testimonials, and videos of the women whose lives had been touched by the foundation. She turned to Nathan. "I want you to sit with them. As a listener, today I'll speak for myself." He didn't argue. And when she walked into the room, she walked in not as someone's girlfriend. She walked in as a woman who had lived every line of the story she was about to tell. Her voice was clear. This project didn't begin in a boardroom. It began with a coffee cart, with overdue bills, with dreams that had no funding and no faith. She showed faces, stories, real women who had found their feet again. It started with women who fight every day to make something from nothing. Some board members shifted uncomfortably. Others softened. And if your concern is my relationship with Nathan Blake, know this, he never handed me anything. What you've seen here is mine, because I've lived it, because I am these women. The room was quiet. No one dared interrupt. When she stepped out of the room, Nathan was waiting in the hallway. He didn't speak. He just pulled her into a hug. Tight, still, safe. "You were brilliant," he whispered. "You were quiet," she replied. "Was that hard?" "Yes, but it was necessary." The official email came through on a quiet Thursday morning. The Recomenso Foundation would remain active. Emily Carter would continue as director, and Nathan Blake would step back from direct oversight to avoid any potential conflicts of interest. "Does that hurt your position?" Emily asked him gently. He smiled. "Only if you leave me." The lump in her throat said everything her words couldn't. The fight had been long, the tension exhausting, but standing here now, it had all been worth it. That evening, as they reached her building, Emily paused at the gate. Something unspoken flickered behind her eyes. "Nathan? Yes? Do you still want to write this story with me?" He didn't even blink. "More than anything," she smiled. "Then let's keep going. But this time, let's write our own chapters, not someone else's." And the kiss that followed wasn't goodbye. It was a promise. Life, as it always does, didn't slow down for romance. The days after the board meeting were intense, but strangely peaceful. The Recomenso Foundation found new footing, and the women it supported continued to grow, launching businesses, telling their stories, lifting each other. Suddenly, Emily was more than just a project manager. She was a mentor, an advisor, an inspiration. It felt strange, scary even, especially for someone who not long ago had been tripping over rugs and spilling coffee on tailored suits. Nathan, true to his word, respected the board's boundary, but he never stopped showing up, just in different ways. Home-cooked lunches, midday texts filled with memes, bouquets made of cheese bread. Yes, he'd found a Brazilian bakery in New Jersey just for her. And deep down, Emily knew something was coming. She just didn't expect it to be this big. It was an ordinary afternoon, one of those New York days when the sky looks like a fading watercolor painting. Emily was walking out of the foundation office, arms full of documents, when she saw a familiar black car waiting at the curb. The window rolled down. Nathan, smiling that lazy, not-so-innocent smile. "Need a ride, Director? Only if the driver sings Beyoncé the whole way. I charge extra for that." She laughed and slid into the passenger seat. But something about him felt different. He was fidgeting, restless. "You okay?" she asked. "I am," he said. "I just thought we could do something different today." "Like what?" "Like dinner. But not here. Farther. Maybe an hour away. So, you kidnapped my appetite?" "No," he smiled. "I kidnapped all of you. But don't worry, it's for a good reason." During the drive, he played a playlist that made her jaw drop. Cheesy love ballads, 90s slow jams, a soft acoustic cover of My Heart Will Go On. "These are my guilty pleasure songs," she whispered. "I know," he said casually. "You hum them when you think I'm not listening." Her eyes narrowed. "Okay, what's going on?" But he just reached over and took her hand. "Trust me." They turned onto a narrow, tree-lined road. No cell service, no city noise. And then she saw it. A beautifully restored old barn, glowing under string lights. Floating candles, flower petals, the scent of wildflowers, and warm bread in the air. "This is for you," Nathan said, opening her car door. "Or rather, because of you." Inside, a table for two was set beneath soft light. A smiling waiter greeted them politely. "Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. Blake." Emily froze. "Mrs. Blake?" "Oops," Nathan said with a twinkle in his eye. Spoiler alert, dinner was romantic, quiet, beautiful, but Emily could feel something bubbling beneath the surface. And after dessert, Nathan stood up, pushed back his chair, and knelt. Right there, under the glow of lights and candlelight, Emily's breath caught. Her hand flew to her mouth. "Nathan, I promised I'd do this my way," he had said, voice suddenly unsteady. "But you know me terrible with rehearsed speeches." "Here it goes," Nathan said, breath unsteady. "I met you in the most chaotic way imaginable, honking horns, flying cupcakes, and a very real fear of being arrested." Emily laughed, already tearing up. "I thought you were a disaster," he continued. "And I was right. But you were the kind of disaster my world needed. You turned my routines inside out. You made my office smell like frosting. You cost me million-dollar deals because I couldn't stop thinking about sugar." And the worst part, he knelt down, holding a small box in his hand. "You made me feel." Inside the box, a simple ring, set with a soft blue stone, the exact shade of the dress she wore the night everything changed. "Emily Carter," he said, voice trembling with sincerity. "Will you be the CEO of my heart, the CFO of my joy, and the lifelong president of every tomorrow I want to live in? Will you marry me?" Tears slipped from her eyes, laughter and love blending as one. That was the most ridiculous and perfect proposal I've ever heard. So, Is that a yes? Of course it's a yes, she cried, throwing her arms around him. As they kissed, the lights in the barn glowed brighter, and from behind the curtains, friends and staff burst into cheers. Becky, filming everything through teary eyes, yelled, "This is totally going viral on the company Instagram." Camilla stood beside Grandma Marlene, who was wiping her tears quietly with a lace handkerchief. And then just when Emily thought it couldn't get any more, the Matako food truck rolled into the driveway. In honor of our very first romantic lunch, Nathan grinned. The wedding happened weeks later, in a small garden just outside New York. Nothing grand, but everything real. Wildflowers lined the aisle. The altar was made of driftwood, dried leaves, and photographs of women from the foundation. Instead of gifts, guests brought donations for future entrepreneurs. Nathan wore a soft gray suit. Emily wore a flowing dress with vintage lace and a bouquet made only of lavender and rosemary. At the entrance, a hand-painted sign read, "From Coffee to Forever." Our story had flavor and courage. Becky naturally officiated. "We're not here to talk profits or balance sheets," she announced, "but to celebrate a long-term investment called love." Laughter echoed. Emily walked toward Nathan, eyes bright, hands steady. "No second thoughts?" he whispered with a smile. "Only if we're running away together," she winked. They exchanged vows that made even the waitstaff tear up. Nathan spoke of learning to feel, to listen, to let go of control. Emily spoke of learning to trust, to open up, to love, without fear. When they were pronounced husband and wife, guests tossed coffee's beans into the air, Becky's idea, of course. The band played a soft, acoustic version of "Can't Help Falling in Love." The reception was simple, full of laughter, clumsy dancing, silly videos, and cupcakes with little signs that read, "A sweet new beginning." That night, when the last guests had gone home, and the stars above felt like lanterns hung just for them, Nathan and Emily danced slowly, barefoot in the grass. "I love you," he whispered, with all the spreadsheets and surprises. She smiled. "And I love you with all the stumbles and spilled coffee." They kissed. And they both knew this story, the one that began with chaos, wasn't an accident. It was fate. Messy, beautiful, intentional fate. And there, in a garden full of light and lavender, they lived the first day of the rest of their lives, together. What did you think of Emily and Nathan's story? If it touched something in your heart, let us know in the comments. On a scale of 0 to 10, what would you rate this journey? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next story. And if you need more warmth and wonder, just click right here. There's always another story waiting to find you. Thank you for being here. To everyone who stayed with us until the very last line, thank you. Thank you for giving your time, your attention, and your heart to this story. At Shining Stories, we believe that the right words at the right moment can heal more than we imagine. And if Emily and Nathan's journey brought you a smile, a tear, or a quiet moment of reflection, then we've already shared something beautiful. We're so grateful to have you as part of this growing community of kindness, connection, and stories that speak to the soul. Here's to love that finds us in unexpected ways, and to you for believing that stories still matter. With all our hearts, thank you.